Well, welcome everybody to Make It Make Sense. I'm Nicola Cairncross and I'm here with my co-host Matthew Moody, who is on pretty good signal today. So let's hope it carries on. And how are you, Matthew? You've been out walking, haven't you?
I'm fabulous, yes, and got a nice walk in yesterday before the weather came down upon us again. But that's what it's like living up north.
Yeah, living up north. It's been heavy, heavy cloud cover for the last few days here. My son's got his girlfriend staying from Holland, and it's just very disappointing. Every time she comes over, we have thick cloud cover. Don't get me started on that topic. It's ridiculous for the end of July.
I'm sure at some point someone will invent some kind of ground kind of heater thing that like just goes up and just shoots holes in the clouds,
Well,
and everyone will
apparently,
be fine.
if you warm white vinegar outside your house, it dissipates the cloud cover, I've heard. But how
You need a
true
lot
that's
of you need a lot of vinegar though, wouldn't you?
well, apparently not. Apparently you just have like a wok full of vinegar and warm it outside and it gets rid of the clouds. I don't know if it's
Okay.
true. I've seen people doing it on YouTube, but I don't know if it works.
Well, look, you moan about the weather all the time and send me pictures endlessly about the grey clouds, which I feel very
I
bad about. So
do.
you should try it for next time and report back.
I'm so outraged by it. I'm 62 years old. I know I don't look it, but there we go. You got
No, you do not.
you get fat or wrinkles. That's what you get. So I've obviously chosen to go one way. An outrage to me, this weather, because I've been alive for all those years and I've never known weather this bad. And when I
Yeah.
came back from Greece in 2019, it wasn't as bad as it is now, but this last year, well, since I came back from wherever I went to in 2022, it's been appalling. And we all know why, don't we? Because all we've got to do is look up, wake up, and speak up.
Yeah, that's right. And I find a lot of people are not doing that. They're just thinking, oh, the weather's been pretty bad, hasn't it? And don't necessarily want to question why. But
Yeah.
what have you
Well,
been up to this week?
I've had a very mind-expanding week this week. I've continued my journey into AI and how it can help me in my business. In fact, I even
Ooh,
sat and asked ChatGPT what I don't know that I should know about how AI can help me in my business further.
wow.
Because I suddenly occurred to me I could just ask it to tell me how. So it asked me a few questions about my business, and it told me all the ways that AI could help me. And I'm principally interested in because I've got my financial systems down. But the one thing I have had is a client inquiry, and I was thinking, oh, I bloody hate doing proposals. You know what I mean? You have to do some basic. I mean, by the time people come to me, they're pretty much thoroughly recommended, so I don't have to sell
Yeah.
myself to. I just have a conversation with them and I suggest things. But then I have to just put something in writing because you have to just put the scope of the project in bullet points at the very least, and then give some sort of financial quote, because there's three ways I work with people. One is they can buy blocks of my time. I'd quite like that for short projects because it means I can say, look, it's going to take me about 10 hours, might be 15. Here's 3 blocks of hours you can buy. You obviously get discount for the more hours you buy up front. Or I work on a retainer basis and the retainer is bigger if you don't want to give me a share of your online profits. It's a sliding scale of retainer based on how much of your online profits you're prepared to share. And
Yeah.
so I do have to put something together to send this person, and she's absolutely ready to go. She wants to start and all that stuff. So that was good. But so I asked ChatGPT if it could put together I'm going to have to tell it one page because it went on to about, I don't know, 10 pages uh,
Uh,
of some sort of proposal. And it asked me questions, I got it to ask me questions about my fee thing. And it didn't do such a great job. So I'm going to have to fix it. But the two things it has done is the one thing I wanted to do was learn how to make shorts on an automated basis for YouTube so that I could just put out a short a day. Because I don't do shorts. I should do shorts. I don't. But I watched a
and,
woman,
and and for the benefit of those Muppets like me, I
yeah.
kind of have heard what a short is, but what is it?
Right, a short is anything up to a minute on. So it's usually a clip
Okay.
of an existing video. So, for example, I should be doing shorts from our podcast here.
No, so it's like reels on Instagram, that type of thing,
Yes,
or
it's like Reels on
stories on.
Instagram. It's like TikTok.
Okay.
TikTok's all shorts, except TikTok
Yeah.
shorts go up to 5 minutes. I think Instagram Reels go up to 3 minutes, and YouTube shorts have to be under a minute. So I generally just produce 1 minute shorts because it then goes to every platform. And they're like, think of them like as a trailer for the movie. So you can actually link them to your longer form video, and it helps people to click through and find it. So, I should be doing it because it's much easier to go viral with shorts. If you've got a viral short, you're only going to get a minute worth of viewing time, which I'm trying to get to 4,000 watch hours on my channel now, because I've got the 1,000 subscribers, but I need the watch hours. And so if it goes viral and millions of people watch your short, then that will count towards your watch time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I've watched this woman do it with using AI, and it was such a brilliant thing. I kept the video, and I finally managed to work through it step by step at the weekend. And yesterday afternoon, I produced my first 31 shorts it took about an hour end to end. But they're there now for the next month. But she's actually set up an AI system to release them, to put them up on your YouTube channel automatically. They all went up at once. To tag them and label them and title them and everything, and then it's set to just every single one. They're scheduled, they're pre-scheduled, so I don't even have to go and schedule them. It's unbelievably exciting.
Sounds really fascinating. Yeah.
And I achieved something else absolutely amazing with AI this week, and it's totally gone out of my head. So
Given the 35 to 40-minute video I recorded yesterday for ReformUK, I look forward to seeing how that technology is going to work.
yeah, well, but that's different, making shorts from existing videos, because that really has to. I think that has to be done manually at the moment. I'd have to watch it and then chop out the good bits. But
Okay, so what you're saying, just to clarify, is what you're saying then is you've used AI to create short videos of up to a minute that
okay, I missed the crucial bit out. I gave it my book and I told it to take out quotes, good bits that could be, and basically you say that, I want it to be I want it to be the big idea, part 1, part 2, and part 3. Part 1, part 2, and part 3 shouldn't be more than a sentence. And then what you do is you feed it into Canva, which is a graphic design software thing, and basically you put it on a video background, and then it puts in the first big idea. So the title comes first, then the first sentence, then the second sentence, then the third sentence, and they fade in and out. So the short is not me, it's ideas from my book.
Brilliant. So it's almost like well, it's graphical content on a video. So
yes,
it's almost like, I guess, a PowerPoint presentation, but done on a video style.
Yeah, in under a minute. In under a minute, yeah.
Awesome. It
is awesome.
Fantastic. That is fantastic. Just thinking out loud for our viewers, because I always believe
that's good. Yeah.
Handing over tips is always a good idea. So if, say, you've done a video like I have, and we edited the video and made it look good, which is what you're awesome at, from that, surely a transcript should then be provided. And you would think from that, you could possibly do something with the transcript. It's probably not going to be as sexy as what you've done, but you could probably do something from the transcript to pull certain things out to do some shorts on that.
That's very true. You could. Now, the other thing you could do is while you're and what I do actually, while I'm editing, I sit and make notes about good bits, timestamps, the timestamp of good bits. So if you say something particularly pithy at 2 minutes 30 in, I'll make a note of that. And then I could go back and chop out a short from that. And I have done that in the past. It's very time consuming, but I have done that. And it has worked really well with some interviews I did with Andy, because I was able to, he's quite pithy to say the least, but he's quite long-winded. So what I had to do was I had to really go down and just pull out this segment and then literally take out every gap in between pauses of words and sentences. And I managed to get some of his pithy bits down to about 3 or 4 shorts of a minute each on you, and got them on YouTube, and they did very, very well. So it's something you should think about, because if you're making videos, because they act as little trailers for your main video, and you can link them to the main video. So it's well worth doing if you've got plenty of time.
Interesting.
So that's what I'll do with yours. I'll watch to see if there's any good bits. So rude.
There's loads of good bits in there.
And if you're very good at speaking succinctly to camera. That's one of your real skills. I don't know if you know that, but it's superpower.
Yeah, thank you. I thought I would do something different this time. So rather than walking down a hill, I walked up a hill. Now, I'm not so sure if it's going to be quite as good, because at the top it was getting a bit, there's a lot of exertion going on there, but it was fun.
So yes, that's what I've been doing this week. And if I remember what the other marvelous thing I've done is with the AI, I'll tell you, but I've forgotten for the moment. So what have you been up to then?
Well, this week, Nicola, I've been mainly painting.
Do you listen to podcasts when you're painting, or what do you do?
Oh yes, absolutely, yes. So I had the rental property, needed to get in and out as quickly as possible, and it should be finished by next week. And I'm always of the opinion that if you can leverage other people to do your stuff for you, fine. But I couldn't find anyone quickly enough to do a job. Obviously, in summer, which is a great time, obviously, for tenants to leave. Always has been, always will be. You kind of have this peak always where, from a lettings perspective, you have this kind of like surge from February onwards. Easter, it gets really high. It carries on until about June. Then July, it just drops off. And then it doesn't really surface again until September. And then it drops off at December. So from a rental perspective, having someone say, oh, yeah, I'm leaving by the end of July, was like, oh, great. Fun times. But yes, to answer your question, yes, podcasts. To be honest, I've been actually listening mainly to the audible version of The Power on repeat, and I have to tell you, It is epic. So if you've not listened to it yet, or if anyone listening or watching hasn't listened to it yet, please do. Makes such a huge difference. It really does. I can definitely say from listening to it for several days on auto replay that it gives you a much better perspective of where you're going and how to go about going where you're going, and also just feeling much better about the world, because let's face it, we do live in somewhat strange and challenging times.
Oh, tell me about
and
it.
It can get you down if you go onto things like X or Facebook or whatever and see the horrendous things going on. So certainly for me, listening to that and taking that in has been really powerful, and probably helped productivity, to be honest, because painting's painting, isn't it? I am pretty good at it because I've done a bit of it in my time, but it's not necessarily my favorite job. But yeah, it's been fun. Have I done anything else? Recorded.
Have you had any ideas or made any decisions while you've been painting and listening to The Power?
I've been ruminating, as you know, about this kind of new consultancy that I wish to basically.
Can you give us any details about that, or is it all in your head still? Or...
Yeah, I mean, it's at the stage where I'm doing some research. I use ChatGPT for that, but I'm going to be talking to actual real life vendors as well, and I think it is going to be focused on the travel industry, purely because, for my own selfish reasons, well, not really. For my own personal reasons, because I wish to build a life that I actually like doing. I want to be in an industry which I actually enjoy helping, and I feel I can add a lot of value to that industry. So I used to be in that industry.
Did you? I didn't know
experience that. I've had. Yeah. I work for Europcar, work for RCI. They're all in the travel industry for many years. So I do have direct knowledge of the industry, and also because of the property background I have and the more entrepreneurial side, it's a lot easier to come in and look at what's not necessarily going as well as businesses would like to help direct them in the right way. So it's very much based on how to improve business revenue, essentially. So I guess you'd call it maybe a business revenue consultant. I'm not really kind of sure how to phrase what it's going to do just yet.
Business development.
Pardon?
Biz dev is the key phrase, isn't it? Business development consultancy.
So I knew I'd have to come to you for the funky words that are on
well,
Twitter.
I wouldn't use that particular phrase, because it smacks of it's a little bit, what's the word, connotations, shall we say. But if you say
Okay.
business development consultant specializing in, I mean, basically what you need to do is go and have a look at my LinkedIn profile, because that formula at the top there is what all the LinkedIn people teach, which is I help the
Yeah.
kind of people to achieve this outcome.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be able to say it in a sentence. I suppose it's an elevator phrase, isn't it?
Yeah, back in the day, I used to have that when I did the property stuff, but I've removed that, as you know, because you keep hounding me about it.
Well, I'd
It's
just
just,
like you to put a picture and a
yeah.
header on your LinkedIn profile, just so I can recommend you to
I
people.
do have a picture.
No,
I do
you
have a
don't.
picture.
It's not showing.
Well,
I've just
bugger me.
got a grey round bit,
Look,
grey round thing.
you must be connected to a different me.
Oh, possibly, yeah. Well, it looked like you. It's got all your stuff on it. Send me your link afterwards.
I'll check it out.
Yeah,
Maybe
have a look, because LinkedIn have
yeah.
changed a lot of things. You probably just haven't looked since they've changed things.
Yeah, I mean, I got to the stage with LinkedIn where, to be honest, it was just spam heaven.
It's
You
very
just
dull. Yeah.
very dull, and just people constantly spamming you, mainly from overseas. Said, "Oh, we need help. I can help you with your marketing, and I help you with your website, and I can help you
I
with
don't
social
look at
media, and
any
this,
of
that, and
those
the other."
messages. I only look at direct messages, and I put content on there to attract people to look at my profile. I don't look at any of those messages at all.
Yes, it's not that I'd wish to look at them, Nicola. It's just that they pop up and they're annoying when you're on there.
Yeah,
So
but as
yeah,
long as you make sure on your LinkedIn profile that people can actually call you or visit your website, then people are going to know how to get hold of you. They don't need to DM you.
yeah, yeah,
It's a funny beast, LinkedIn. It really is. It's very different to all the other platforms. But if you're looking, the brilliant thing about this is what you can do with AI. It can go off and find, if you know who makes decisions for your new consultancy, you can actually go off and AI can go and trawl LinkedIn, and it can actually find all those people, and it can bring them back and put them in a database for you so that you can start contacting them.
yes,
It's
please.
very clever.
Very much like that, and we'll be
Yeah.
following up.
So what flavour Huel is that? I like the chocolate one, but I didn't like any of the others.
This is banana. Oh, you can't really see it.
Banana.
Banana. But it actually, I don't know if this is a topic or not, but I'd throw it in there. One of the things that's really annoying me at the moment, and maybe this is just a new subject discussion, is this nonsense here. This ridiculous, oh, I'm going to have a little thing that you can't take this off, and it's forever on your little bottle because apparently we are too simple as people to be able to know how to look after our bottle tops. And people that just deliberately take them off and throw them away, which is just an horrendous activity. But I'm just getting more and more annoyed by this stuff. This whole kind of like nanny state thing about, oh, well, you've got to be really careful about when you take this off because you might lose it. Well, look, the whole thing about Huel is you're meant to shake it first to get it going. So I shook it first to get it going, spilt half of it down my brand new t-shirt on and didn't. So highly annoying about that, but I don't let it take up too much of my thoughts, as the power says, because negativity breeds negativity. But
Yeah.
can we just go back to normal caps? Can we go back to normal caps, please?
Screw on caps rather than press on caps. Is that what we're talking about here?
No, no. So this is a screw-on cap, but now I don't know if you may not buy bottles, but they all have a little connector now. All of them. I mean,
Yeah,
literally,
I'm aware of the
yeah,
connector factor. Yeah.
yeah. So this connector thing is meant to help your life. It doesn't help your life. It's just highly annoying because it does things like spills onto you. It does things such as the fact if you're trying to drink it, it gets in the way. It's just annoying.
I don't
But
understand how it can screw with that connector on it.
well, obviously, someone has spent millions in development to determine how you unscrew it because it does unscrew. It's not as
And
easy as
does the connector move freely around the neck of the bottle then? But
yeah. So there's a connector under the connector, so it moves around. But
oh,
it's just
God.
this whole thing about, I think, innovation and actually, uh, it's one of the things that I kind of wanted to talk about in terms of my topic was innovation for innovation's sake. Sometimes isn't actually innovation; it's just madness, and this is one of these things.
Yeah.
It's just there's obviously some EU guidelines that have come in place somewhere that they thought it'd be a great idea to stop this kind of oh, we've got lots of bottle tops going missing and they're clogging up, all of the various sites and such like. Well, here's an idea. Why don't we go back to making glass bottles? And then why don't we have a glass recycling bank where you get a penny every one you recycle, like we used to? But no, that's far too sensible to even think about that, isn't it? And obviously, it's probably cheaper to make these than it is to make glass ones, should I say. But yeah, innovation for innovation's sake sometimes isn't innovation. So I was watching a very interesting kind of docu-film, if you want to call that, earlier on the week called Blackberry, which is fun enough about Blackberry. So Nicola, did you ever have a Blackberry?
I did. I had a Blackberry when I had the hotel. I remember it was marvelous.
Fabulous. So I don't know which one you had, but did you have the blue one, the one they originally launched with?
No, I don't do any color except for black on accessories, black or white.
Okay, well, originally when BlackBerry came out, it came out as blue because BlackBerry blue. It kind of, the name came from the fact that when they went to do the pitch to Bell Atlantic, who basically they had to get on board to give them the funds to build this thing, the guy that kind of the co-creator was eating blackberries in the car and spilt it on his white shirt. So that's how the pitch got.
Messy.
Basically, the guy that took them to where they became, a multi-billion-dollar company, kind of came up with this idea. But it's just interesting, isn't it? Because you look back and you think, well, I remember when Blackberries came out, effectively they were using what is existing Wi-Fi over the internet to connect in to deliver emails for free, effectively. So they were basically carrying off the back of the carriers, and that's why it became so popular. But what they didn't do, and this is the interesting thing, is they kept going down this path. So nowadays, obviously, we have these phones and they have no keyboards or anything. When BlackBerry arrived, and I remember them arriving, I remember I was working in corporate America at the time for RCI. The senior management got their Blackberries, and then the next level down got theirs. And I remember getting my little blue Blackberry, and I was so excited about it. But that effectively was an innovation that meant the end of any personal time for corporate people, because they could contact you any time then once you had that. So whilst you thought it was great because you had this little device, and it also
it wasn't for the touch typists among us. I remember being incredibly infuriated by the teeny tiny things that I was supposed to use and I've never been good at texting anyway, so it just wasn't.
It was designed for thumbs. So that's how they designed
it wasn't good for touch typists. It just didn't work for us.
No, absolutely. But I think what was interesting is and I kind of knew some about this story, but they told this story in a much more dramatic detail, obviously on the film, is they made all this stuff in America, and that's why the quality was exceptional. And the reason why they eventually went down the pan is two reasons. One, the iPhone launched, and there was two creators originally. One of them left due to differences. The first creator, the guy whose name I should remember, and I forget it off the top of my head, he couldn't understand why you'd want a phone without a keyboard. Because obviously he'd created this thing. He'd essentially created a market for effectively a phone that does email, because there wasn't one. And he was just sidelined by it. And one of the main sponsors, I think Bell Atlantic, said, well, look, we're walking. We've seen your new phone and it's kind of okay, but it's like just the same version of the old phone. And, the iPhone is amazing. So that's the first thing that kind of set them down the path of they're just going to lose it, really. And then they came out with a new model called the Storm. I remember the Storm because I had a Storm as well. And it was the first BlackBerry with no keys. But this is interesting because of this guy's obsession. And remember, this is a tech guy very much into like the stuff, the obsession with the keyboard, the Storm. And I probably still have one around somewhere. I don't even know if I've got it in my drawer. Oh, what is it? This is unbelievable.
You haven't, it's like you prepared it one earlier.
No, honestly.
Well, hold it still, because your internet isn't very good if you keep moving. Okay, so what is that?
So this is the BlackBerry Storm, but because of this guy's obsession with
having a keyboard.
It slides up to have a keyboard.
Okay, all right. Well, that's pretty cool. It's a bit like
The issue,
Star Trek.
the issue they had is they couldn't manufacture them quickly enough in America, and they had a new COO that basically kept saying, "Let's go to China, let's go to China," and the whole thing about why this whole kicked off in terms of why they made them in America to begin with is because the quality. And at that time, I don't know if you remember if you were ever involved in any kind of corporate meetings or whatever, a lot of like the big execs used to have a little intercom thing on their desk where they could page their or press a button to get their secretary or PA.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah.
All of these were made in China. All of them had one noise around them because they were basically crap, let's face it. And this guy started off by fixing these because he was so annoyed about them. To cut a long story short, they outsourced all of this stuff to China, and they had all these phones come in. This may even be a later version of the Storm, to be honest, I can't remember, but they were defective. The Chinese had basically
scuppered them. Yeah.
So I think they got sued by Verizon for 500 million for ineffective handsets. And, you know, the reason I just bring this up is innovation is innovation. Sometimes it's innovation for innovation's sake, and sometimes you have to step back and think, well, is that really the way to go? Is at one point, BlackBerry had 45% of the cell phone market, 45%. Now they have zero.
Yeah. Yeah.
They just don't exist because of what happened with, you know, the iPhone innovation, but a different type of innovation, and also the outsourcing to China and product things. So, yeah, I just wondered if you'd had any or come across anything like that where you've seen things develop over time and kind of go into obscurity because they didn't develop fast enough or because they innovated too far and it just wasn't worth them doing, like bottle.
You know, your story about BlackBerry reminded me because I bought the hotel in 2003, so I must have had a BlackBerry around 2003, 2004. But before that, the previous decade, actually, it reminds me of how Twitter got going. And I'm always one really to see. The one thing I do see is how can I make money with this, and how can it make my life easier? So that's the two judgments I give to new innovation. When Twitter first came out, it was when my kids were just born. So between 95 and 97, I think it must have been 96, Twitter came out, and it was not known as a social media platform. What it was known for was it could connect people who were on computers with people who could only text. So it connected SMS messaging with computer messaging. So you could and the reason I got it straight away was because my sister's an opera singer and jazz singer, but she mainly goes around the world singing modern music, you know, big venues. And she sings at the Sydney Opera House, she sings in, you know, Carnegie Hall, that sort of place. But she's always on the road in a hotel where the internet connection was so expensive and so unreliable. She used to just text people all the time. And then it turned out with Twitter that she could use text to send a message to Twitter, which I could then pick up on my laptop or my desktop, as it was in those days, because I could connect to my Twitter account through my computer interface. So that's how Twitter got such a massive, massive popularity, because it connected people who could only use SMS with people who could only use computers. And it was fantastic. And eventually that SMS thing died out somehow. You weren't able to text your tweet anymore because you were able to access Twitter on your screen on your mobile.
Yeah.
So that was an amazing innovation which nobody really understood or appreciated. Yeah. But it was life-saving for a lot of people traveling the world and staying in hotel rooms. So, but no, I can't think of anything else. I mean, you know, I move on from things very quickly if they don't fulfill those two criteria. If they don't save me time or make me money, I'm not interested. I'm not interested in innovation for innovation's sake or whatever.
No, agreed. And this is just why I kind of thought it was an interesting topic.
Talking about painting briefly, before I lose the thought, I've been watching people who do up properties on YouTube, and they've got these amazing spray guns now to paint large swathes of walls and ceilings. They have to completely wear these little paper, like PPE, I suppose, to stop getting covered in paint, because it obviously splatters everywhere. But Yeah, you can really cover a room quickly with those spray guns.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing about them that you have to do if you're doing that is it's in the prep, and the prep could be about a day to
Yeah,
2 days,
masking
because you
everything
have
off
to
and
mask
yeah.
everything. You have windows, this, that, and the other, and then it is very quick. Absolutely. We
That's
have
one
had a
reason I
property
don't
done
do
like that.
DIY, Matthew, is the prep just
Yeah,
drives me
we have
crazy.
had a property done like that, and it was pretty quick, to be fair, but just couldn't find anyone for love nor money to do this particular job.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
fine. I'm getting the power every day, so that's fine too.
yeah. So are you going to circling back to your listening to the power and your consultancy business? Are you going to, is it business to business? Are you going to be so the people who
Yeah,
make the buying decision will be what, the owners of the business or people in
yeah,
corporate
yeah. It'll have to be owners, general managers. I'm looking at just trying to hone down the target audience at the moment to hotels and holiday resorts, which is where I think the most bang for the buck is, so to speak, in terms of improvements that can be made. And it has to be of a certain turnover. So it's going to be quite interesting in terms of just developing
all of
that.
that's
But
good. The more you know about your target market, the easier it becomes.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if I mentioned I had a good friend that I've known for many, many years, originally of the property world, and he's doing some consultancy development work, etc. at the moment for a wellness resort in Zanzibar. Well, they want me to come out there and give them some consultancy.
Oh,
So
Zanzibar is one of the places we looked at as if we were going to have to leave the country in a hurry, if they were going to bring in mandates for various things. That was
yeah,
Zanzibar was one of the places we were looking at.
yeah. So I mean, that'll be a very good case study for me to have on the book, so to speak, in terms of
Absolutely, yeah.
talking to people, because that's a big, I think, 400-acre development with a separate island that they have. And they're building a very much a wellness, sustainable resort, which is aimed at people like you and me who want to, if it all goes south, get away and go somewhere else and live in communities where people are living there in a community. But they obviously have their own separate facilities, but it's very much about
Yeah.
growing crops, permaculture, sustainability, and living off grid effectively, but in a way that's not, it's catered for Westerners in that sense, but using local materials to build everything. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of that kind of development going on in Mexico as well. You might want to there's a chap I know who is in the process of buying one of these places. I could certainly hook you up and you could have a chat with him because
Yeah,
he could tell you all about how the purchasing process, because that would give you insights as to where it could be improved for customers, perhaps.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at it very much from the point of view of, well, what can you do with this to get it going? Because they have a kind of clubhouse, if you want to call it that. They need to build a show house. And my thing is thinking about it from the point of view, well, how can you get people in quickly in a way that makes sense? And for me, it will be things like fractionals, private residence clubs, things where people don't necessarily need to own that particular unit, but they'll own access to the unit so they can come and go as they want. So yeah, I'd be very interested in talking further with your chap as well.
Of course the word that springs to mind is timeshare there, and those of us of a certain age remember being pressured horribly into buying timeshare. But my friend had she was left a timeshare by her grandmother, and it was incredibly useful for her. She was able to swap it out and go and stay in all sorts of resorts around the world. So they did have a bad name on the selling front, but they actually had a really good name from the point of view of the convenience of the customer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole issue around timeshare, it was really down to the sales tactics. And, I was never on that side because obviously I work for the company that managed the exchange mechanism globally. Uh, and all it comes down to is the very simple fact that the salespeople were paid thousands and thousands of dollars or euros or francs or pesos or whatever in commissions. So if someone was, let's say, buying a unit for, say, 10, 15,000, whatever, the salespeople would be in at least 50% of that, at least.
Wow.
So, that,
But they
so
didn't
that's
get
why
retainers, did they? They didn't get paid
no,
salaries. No.
they generally were commission only, and it was very highly intensive, which is why you had all of these issues. But I think nowadays the industry has been cleaned up quite a lot. And obviously, with things such as fractionals and private residence clubs, that is a very different type of sales mode. I mean, a private residence club, you're looking at, say, 50 to $100,000 or euros to join.
Mm.
You're not going to be having a hard pitch from someone to do that. It's like, here it is. Come and have a look. See if you like it. If you do, come on board. And if you don't, well, you had a good few days away. Thank you very much. So yeah, I think they did have a lot to answer for, but it's still extremely popular, and it's a very good way of, certainly if you want to purchase one on the off market or the resale market as it's known, you can get very good units for a couple of thousand. The only thing I would say as a caveat is most or all timeshare units have a maintenance fee attached to them. That could be £400 or £500 per year. But saying that, if you want to swap and go somewhere else, it's certainly definitely acceptable for some people. And also, if you've got a destination that you love going back to time and time again, you could buy a unit and go back every year, same week every year, and happy days.
That sounds absolutely anathema to me. That sounds, the thought of having to go on the same week to the same place every year is just like, although I
But
do.
Some people love it. Some
I
people love
know,
it.
I know.
I
They love
don't. I don't.
a regimented life, but the words of it, just having to go the same 2 weeks. Oh my God, horrendous. Although I've been going back to the same place for over 25 years, so it's like it's not like I don't mind. If you like somewhere, you like somewhere. But I suppose then you get into looking how to make it easier to go back to the same place every year, don't you?
Yeah, precisely.
There's something about, I don't know whether it's my seafaring lineage. It just, the thought of anything tying me down. In fact, commitment to anything, I find it very hard to commit to go on holiday more than about a month away. Strikes terror in my heart.
Yeah, I have the same feelings about that. I prefer to just go with the flow. But you're saying you've got seafaring heritage. Tell me more about this. This is interesting.
Well, I did my it's a bit more interesting than just seafaring heritage. I've got in lockdown I did my I got a membership of was it Ancestry? I think it was. Yeah, I think it's
All right,
Ancestry.
yeah.
And I went back through all our family because I've got a stepfather who came from Scotland, and I thought it'd be interesting. And then my grandmother there's two particularly interesting threads of this. Is my grandmother was obsessed. She was severely working class. I mean, she was sent into service when she was about 12 years old. Her family lived in Suffolk, and they sent her down to a big house in Sussex to go into service. And the thought of doing that to a 12-year-old is just horrendous, because they were called tweenies, and they had very hard lives. But her family was obviously dirt poor. And then, she met my granddad, and he was a market gardener stroke labourer. And so but she was obsessed with, and one of our happiest memories was watching Upstairs, Downstairs together. And she would absolutely love the royal family. She was such she loved the whole thing about royalty and luxury and all that stuff. And she actually made a really nice life for herself. She had a very comfortable life, but mainly because of her own skills. But I thought I wasn't going to find anything. But it was so interesting because I remember she told me that her family came from Suffolk, and her mother's name was Winifred. And that was all I had. And I got her marriage certificate, and I found out who her father was. Anyway, so it unlocked this whole thing that went right back to Suffolk in the like the 1200s or something like that. And
Wow.
she had an ancestor called Lady Cecilia Dermingland, which is D' Ermingland, and she came from
Wow.
the Normans who came over, But there's no
Wow.
family house or family grounds or anything like that. But my nan would have been so thrilled to know that she had a lady and
Wow.
ultimately royal blood in her veins from that. But then I did all the threads of the family I could possibly remember, possibly go into, and didn't really find anything much more exciting than that. My granddad never moved out of Henfield. The Cairncrosses never moved out of Montrose in Scotland. They used to. But then I remembered I had a real father. Now, the reason I'd forgotten him was because he my mother and he divorced when I was about 6 or 7. And he died when I was about 8 or 9. So I'd sort of just forgotten he was my dad, because my dad was my dad. My stepdad was my dad.
Yeah.
That was it. Anyway, his name was Thomas Clark Cochrane Mackenzie, which is quite an interesting name. And my stepfather was a chief engineer on a ship, and Thomas Mackenzie was the first officer on the ship. And my mother met my stepfather when she went on board ship to sail around the world to recover from an illness, mental illness, as it turned out. Nobody told us that, though. And she fell in love with the chief engineer, which was awkward, to say the least, especially as they were in the Far East at the time. So long story short, I started researching Thomas Mackenzie's background, and it was very, very difficult, because what I didn't know was that sailors were not counted in the census. If they were away at sea, they weren't counted. That's typical. That's typical for sailors, and so it took me a long time to find. I got my father's father from the wedding certificate, which I had to order and get a copy of. But once I'd got, his name was William Mackenzie, and I couldn't get any further back than that. And then what happens is that you have to go away from it and then come back to it, because the database chews all the possibilities over once you put in some details. And if you also, another tip for anyone researching their ancestry is that if you assume that everyone lives for 50 years, that helps you work out when someone might have been born. And Ancestry give you a window of opportunity around 10 years around that 50 years. So if you're off, some more people than you think live to 80. You always imagine it's short, brutish lives once you go back past the Industrial Revolution. But actually, no, lots of people live till they're 80. But 50 is a good average. And eventually, Ancestry chewed out a brother of my great-great-grandfather. And that enabled me to carry on going back. So, they make suggestions, and you have to work out, if it looks right, if their children's names are right, if the dates are right. And I finally managed to get back to, well, this one really surprised me, the Archbishop of Greece, who was Scottish.
Wow.
And I thought, hang on a minute, didn't archbishops, they wouldn't have been able to have children? But then I remembered that all the bloody clergy did have children. They were just illegitimate children. I thought, no, something made me think that it had gone wrong then. So I just deleted the whole thing and started again. So I went back to Thomas Mackenzie, William Mackenzie. His father was called William Mackenzie. And then all the Mackenzies back to the Stuart Kings this time. I got the Stuart Kings. So that meant that we were descended, and Ancestry actually told me point blank, I'm the 21st granddaughter of Robert the Bruce.
Wow.
Because it went right back through the Stuart Kings and everything like that. So my children are the 22nd grandchildren of Robert the Bruce. And weirder than that is that we're also descended via another member of the family from the first king of the Danes, Denmark, Finland and Sweden.
Interesting.
So we're Vikings and we're Scottish royalty. Now, I can't guarantee that's true, because of that thing that it made the mistake with the Archbishop of Greece. I can't guarantee that's true, but I have a printout from Ancestry that tells me and shows me my direct lineage to Robert the Bruce. So the funny thing is, when I found that out one day, it sort of explained a lot to me about how I am, about why I'm a rebel and why I'm so, I like to travel, because, a family of sailors, well, you're going to get the wanderlust, aren't you? And the Cairncrosses are spread out all over the world. So not that I'm a direct blood relative, but, the Scottish people, the diaspora of Scottish people spread out all over the world. But it also explained to me, and I don't know if that's true, you sort of suddenly think, have I got it in my blood to be a rebel? Have I got it in me that I don't accept authority easily, that I question things, but it also explains to me why I've got a very big love of country house hotels and castles. I love staying in those historic places. I absolutely love it. And I've read a lot of history. I've read a lot about Robert the Bruce, funny enough. So what I don't recommend people do is give their DNA to these companies, because they are literally selling them on to the people who do the biological things in labs.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So I've never given in.
Obviously, we don't know whether any of it's been taken during random intervals in our life anyhow, do we? But
well, probably
anyhow,
has, yeah.
Another topic for another day. But it's interesting, though, what you say about Ancestry, because something popped up for me the other day on, I don't know, some social media channel, and it's just the thing about where we're living right now. We need to live in the present and think about what's happening. And when we die, effectively, everything that we've built up will be gone. Someone else will have it, and someone else will be living in our house, and someone else may be driving our car, and this, that, and the other. And whilst it wasn't a kind of depressing type of video, it was just talking about the fact that so many people, think about the future, but really we should be thinking more about the present and what's going on right now, what we can do right now. And obviously, looking back on your history is a wonderful thing to do, but it's interesting, isn't it, that you can see these names on a kind of Ancestry,
and pictures. A lot of them, especially once you find royalty, lords and ladies, they actually had pictures. I mean, Lady Cecilia Dermingland, there's a fuzzy picture of her, which is obviously a picture of a really beautiful old painting. Now, even weirder, right? I missed this bit off. I was watching a program. It was like a detective thriller thing. They were filming up in this beautiful old house, absolutely stunning, and the camera went up the stairs, and there's a picture of Lady Cecilia Dermingland on the stairs. And I'd never managed to find the original, obviously because it's in private ownership. It's not in a gallery or a museum or anything. All that's been catalogued. Anyway, so I found out now where this place was filmed, and it's near Windsor. So I'm going to ask them if I can go, and if I've actually emailed them to ask them if they've got a picture of this woman and if I could get a good copy of it. But because when you look into the picture of an ancestor's eyes, it's got a whole new meaning. It's not just a name, it's a person. You really relate to it then.
Yeah, I agree indeed. And I think the point I was trying to make as well is that by doing something like Ancestry, it really does bring to light and keep alive the people that have gone before us, because often we forget, and whilst we might remember our grandfather and grandmother, maybe great grandfather and grandmother for some people, beyond that, it's just blank. We don't know anything about them. So doing something like that, I find is very interesting. I think my brother's wife's doing something about that at the moment. I'm not sure how far she's got on.
There's always one in the family.
There's always someone doodling around the background. But I just find it interesting because it does kind of keep alive what has gone on before. And I think we're also sometimes in today's society kind of a dangerous tipping point of not remembering the past. And whilst it's important to live in the present too, it's also important to keep some of those memories alive. And we're not so good, I don't think, nowadays at keeping the old I guess oral traditions alive. I mean, you get together as a family, there'll always be the same kind of old jokes that come up, the same kind of stories about something that happened that was embarrassing for somebody. But then going further back to the next generation, the generation behind that, it's not done that often, is it? Because it's not as though it's written in a book. You go and say you're related to Mozart or something. There's dozens of books on the bloke, and you can go and find out what his favourite meal was and this, that, and the other. We don't know anything about that in terms of our other ancestors. So, I find it fascinating, the whole topic.
Which leads beautifully into the topic I wanted to talk about today, which was literally as I woke up this morning, Andy recommended a video by CryptoRich. Have you come across CryptoRich?
If I'm honest, I have.
And to be honest, I've been a little bit put off by the name. It sounds a bit scammy. It sounds a bit, ducky-divey sort of thing. And so I haven't really paid him much attention, although he is included in quite good discussions of people I do respect. So I know he's not a complete scam or anything. But CryptoRich has got a video out right now called It's All Falling Apart. And I highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in what's going on in the world, because it's him and a guy called Gordon, who I've got no idea where Gordon's come from, but he's pretty bright bloke. And they're talking about what's going on with the Labour Party and Starmer and things in the world, what's going on in the world. It's a really good discussion. But in it, they talk about the Act of 1688, which is our Civil Liberties Act. It's like our Constitution. And it actually enshrines the values of free speech in that Act of 1688, which was enacted just after Cromwell had been such a terrible dictator. And so they obviously thought, we don't want any more of those arriving. So we've got a constitution of 1688, the Bill of Rights. It's called the Bill of Rights, I think, which sounds a bit American, but it isn't. And it enshrines our rights as citizens and people and humans. It's got something within it that it cannot be amended. They can build legislation on top of it, but it can't be amended by any parliament in the land. So that's interesting that we have our own constitution and our own right of free speech. But they also talk about a really interesting topic, because CryptoRich apparently has been a social worker most of his life. And he was talking about the way the governments are behaving is the same way that an abuser in a family behaves. And they have a very interesting conversation where they compare, how an abuser isolates and separates and pushes away family and makes the abused person willing to do anything to make the abuse stop. And he was comparing it all the way through the conversation to, when they locked us down, that was the initial abuse. When they forced us to wear masks, that was ridiculous. And we all knew it was ridiculous, but so many people went along with it just because they wanted the abuse lockdown to stop. And he really laid it out very well about what's happening now with the whole borders thing and how the EU is abusing separate sovereign countries, what they're doing to Hungary. And it was just a fascinating conversation. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, really, about how our governments are acting as abusers.
Yeah, I mean, extremely interesting and complex topic, isn't it? I think, interestingly, the first thing I was going to pick up on is the free speech piece, because I think that is so important. And obviously, if people aren't aware, there was an amendment made to the Higher Education Act, which would effectively enshrine and protect free speech in universities.
I saw that.
For students, professors, lecturers, etc. And our new government, elected by just 30% of the people, just so you know, they decided that they're not going to actually do the final piece of the act. So this act has gone before Parliament. It's been given royal approval. It's there waiting to be enacted. And there's a couple of end legislative processes that need to be go through to literally make it law, and they've decided that they're not going to do that. So the Free Speech Union, of which I'm sure you're aware, Toby Young and so on, they're mounting a legal challenge to that next week, because this has been agreed by both the House of Commons, the Houses of Lords. It's been through multiple sit-ins, it's been approved, and this is when Labour are also in opposition too. And now it's come to the end post where it's meant to have a few repeats wrapped around. I don't know what those bits are, because I'm not obviously a legislator yet, but it has some things that need to happen. They've said, no, we're not going to do that. I think it's utterly abysmal. I think it's cowardly. I think it just speaks words about what you've just said in terms of the abuse of governments and thinking they can do whatever the hell they like just because they have the power. And we are right now living in a dictatorship, let's face it. We have two parties that are the same party, Labour and the Tories, are exactly the same side of the same little coin.
I think a lot of people have woken up to that now as well.
They agree with everything that everybody says, and as far as I can see, the only thing that they're interested in is how they can, take as much money out of the system as possible for their own nefarious ends, and I think it's unacceptable. And I agree wholly with what Crypto King, or whatever he's called, says.
CryptoRich.
CryptoRich.
And his name, I found out today, because I always thought it was all about getting rich with crypto, which is probably why I avoided it, because it's, get rich quick, scammy stuff. But actually, his name is Richard. Okay. So he's just called himself CryptoRich.
Yeah, well, I agree with Richard entirely. I think it became clear to me personally in probably I don't know. I don't know the exact dates, but maybe somewhere between 2015 and 2016, when the Tories basically said, "Okay, you're a landlord. You've got a mortgage on a property. We're not going to let you take that off as costs anymore. We're just going to lump it on and charge you profits on everything," which basically means you earn £100, you have £50 costs. We're going to tax you on 150. Well, I knew right then that we were being abused and taken advantage of, and I made various lobbying efforts to try and address this, including the petition, which got to over 100,000, I think. But
Wow, it's supposed to be debated
just
in Parliament, isn't it? If it gets over 100,000.
it kind of never happened because despite there being around 5 million landlords in the UK, what I found interesting at the time is all of the major property companies were not interested in helping. They just ignored emails. I called various ones of them, couldn't care less about it, just didn't care. So in the end, I think we got to something about 78,000 or something. So it never got debated because of the fact that multiple people in the property industry, all the big names that people will know if they're in the industry, didn't want anything to do with it whatsoever, couldn't care less about it.
Well, is it
So
that they
that
couldn't
for
care less, or is it that they were scared that if they put their head above the parapet, they would be penalised in some way?
well, either sir, they're cowards and they should look at themselves in
Yes.
the mirror and say, why did I not support these people at this time?
Yeah. Because it's the old story, isn't it? First they came
So
for the
yeah,
Jews, then they came for the gypsies, and then they came for the gays. And it's only when people stand up, which it looks like people are starting to do now, by the way, although we don't want to stray into too much of that kind of topic. But you're right, they're cowards.
yeah, I think it's happening everywhere, and I think the issue is that, and we've talked about this before, most people just want a nice, quiet life. They want to have a job that they kind of enjoy doing to some extent. They want to go on holiday. They want to have their weekends off and enjoy it with family and friends. They want a few hobbies, and they just want to be left alone. And then they want to retire and not live in poverty. Unfortunately, governments are actively seeking to basically take everything that everyone wants to do away from them. And they're also hiding things. And I think this is the issue. When people get to breaking point, they think, well, where can I go and what can I do? Give you a prime example, which is not relevant globally, but relevant to my local area, is in Penrith, there is essentially a factory that processes hides to make glue. You can imagine
Oh,
there is somewhat
stinky.
of a
The Penrith
stink.
Pong.
Yes, indeed, the Penrith Pong. This has been going on for years. Last year, 3,500 complaints made to environmental health, environmental agency. This year alone, over 700. Nothing is being done about it at all. Nothing. No one cares. No one's interested. There is apparently some mechanism in place at the factory to dissipate the stink, but it costs them money to run it. So it's not always working, it's not always on. This is just third party evidence. I have not seen this myself. This is just what I've been told. And now the campaign group, that's a local campaign group, it's got 1,000 members in it. They've been taken to court by this company who was saying, it's not us making the stink. You can't accuse us. There is only one factory out there pumping stuff into the air. You can see it. Well,
One or
they're
two.
making the glue. So they're
Right.
making the glue. So it's and there's lots of waste from there. Some of it's toxic and hazardous,
It
and
sounds
there's a
horrible.
whole bunch of things going on. But the issue you've got is what I say about these people are being effectively abused. The people that you think would support them, the town council, the environment agency, your local MP, are doing nothing about it whatsoever. So when it gets to that stage and people think, well, what else can I do? The only thing they can do at this moment in time, short of turning up to the gates and taking some kind of action, which I wouldn't recommend, but they could, the only thing they can do is publish it on social media. Also, we're being abused by the media too, because they don't publish any stories that aren't ticked off by their little
Yeah.
financiers or people that back them. So they can't even get it onto media, really, in terms of local media, TV channels, and newspapers. So you are very much rapidly coming to that issue, which you're going to have some kind of civil action going on because of one simple fact: the people do not feel that they're being listened to. And
No.
there's only before things start to then massively deteriorate. And I thought it was interesting that Keir Starmer, had some little words to say earlier in the week where basically he was saying, a lot of issues in the UK recently, lots of stabbings, lots of riots and such like, and protests which descended into riots. And his whole thing was about, well, we're going to get tougher on the riots. We're going to have facial recognition. We're going to
get tough on
put banning orders.
The far right.
But nothing about what you're going to do about the people running around with knives. Nothing to do with what you're going to do about the people that are on the watch list that are just being left to run around. Nothing to do with what you're going to do to protect society in those community. All about, we're going to clamp down on these protesters. And the reason people are protesting or standing in silent vigils is because they don't know what else to do, because there are no leaders out there, apart from ReformUK, standing up and saying, enough is enough, something needs to change. And I just think it's utterly abysmal. And I think the other thing, sorry, I'll get off my rant in a minute.
No, I've had my rant, you're allowed yours.
Another thing which is really interesting, Nicola, and you probably won't know this, and I think most people don't, and this is why it's, I think, utterly disgusting and underhand, but I can see why they do it. So we've just had a general election. We've got, I think it's 335 or so new MPs. Now, a number of those MPs would have been councillors, yeah?
Okay, yeah. I don't know why they would have been. Why would they have been?
Yeah, and a number of them would have been, because one of the natural progressions to become an MP is from councillor to MP. It happens. So the MP that got elected locally here was a councillor. Yeah.
Okay.
And this happens in many places. Now, this is what's interesting. You would think that once you were elected as an MP, you would then have to give notice as a councillor.
Yes, you would think that.
You don't. You can technically be an MP and a councillor. How you do this, I don't know, but you can. Now, our MP has said, well, he's written to the pay people, the allowance people, and saying, well, he's not going to take his allowances because he gets like 15k for a councillor and 15k for being on some committee. And he said this in public because the Tories called him out on it, which is fine. And this isn't necessarily a dig at him anyhow. But what's interesting is you can be an MP and carry on being a councillor. The next interesting piece is, if you then resign as a councillor, what do you then think happens? Well, I would personally think that, well, an election happens.
Yeah, no, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
That's not what happens. What happens is a little post appears from the acting returning officer somewhere hidden on a website that's not visible at all, because I've searched for it and it's only through Googling it you can find it. And it says, notice of a casual vacancy. I mean, seriously, notice of a casual vacancy. That's what these notices are called. And it will say something like, Councillor so-and-so has resigned, so there is now a vacancy. And then it will say, well, in order for a by-election to be called, there needs to be so many people that call for it. And the number varies. The lowest number I've seen is 2, and I've seen a number of 10, and there could be other councils that have different numbers. But this isn't publicised widely, and it's not made that clear to people that this is happening. But the more important fact beyond this is, because it's so unknown and people don't know about it, the caveat at the bottom says this. They publish it and they'll say you've got 10 days or 14 days to basically trigger a by-election. If you don't, the councillors in power can co-opt the councillor. So what does that mean? Basically, it's very simple. All of our Labour-controlled councillors, under the radar, don't tell anyone about it, and then co-opt, which will be a Labour councillor, to further denigrate and destroy our country. I think it's utterly abysmal. I think it's outrageous. I'm absolutely fuming about it. And I put a post in our ReformUK WhatsApp group earlier to say, look, guys, you all need to go and search your local areas to see if this is going on, because we've already missed one in Cumbria, up in Carlisle, which I didn't even know about, because I thought this would be publicised in a way where you can see on the council's website. It's not.
Yeah, everyone needs to set up a Google alert for what's it called? A notice of casual something?
Vacancy, yeah.
Yeah, no, and do it in inverted commas. So if you set up a Google alert for notice of casual vacancy, all of them will come in, and set it to come in once a day. Then you'll be alerted of all of them as they're posted.
Yeah, I don't get paid to do that for Reform UK, but someone at head office can do that. I'm
Yeah,
sure they're on the ball.
I'm I'm not convinced they
Sorry, that
will.
was sarcasm. I apologise.
So are you going to apply for your local councillor position then?
Well, there won't be one because the MP that was a councillor is in a particular ward that I'm not in. So
Oh,
we need to get someone else on board. We have got one guy that possibly may be interested. I talked to him a few weeks ago and he's kind of interested, but he's getting on a bit and saying, I don't know if I can do it. But if we can persuade him, he'll be very good. Otherwise, we'll have to find someone to stand. But that's bearing in mind that he even resigns. He
yeah.
doesn't have to resign. And
Why would
this,
you resign if you're giving up 30 grand a year?
well, he says he's basically pushed that to one side and told him not to pay that, which is fine. I believe what he said, but he's missed multiple meetings already. Uh, I would think
But
the right and honourable and fair thing to do would be to tender your resignation and let someone else that's in the area
yeah,
on a day-to-day basis
yeah.
take up. That would be the right and honourable thing to do. But can a Labour person do that? I don't know.
Would a right honourable member of parliament do that?
You'd think so, but I don't
Yeah,
think most of them are right nor honourable.
yeah. So that's the thing you're mad about this week. Well, but the listening to the power is calming you down, bringing you
Look,
back to the
you can
present.
only do so much, can't you, in terms of trying to alter the course of history in your country, let's
Yeah.
face it.
I think you've done a lot recently to try and, because all the videos you made are educating people still on YouTube and Facebook, and all the work you did out in the communities. You've done a lot. I think you deserve a bit of a break now. Pursue your own interests for a little while.
Indeed. Until the conference in September.
Yeah. What was that?
Until the conference in September.
What's the conference in September?
The Reform UK conference in September at the NEC. It's already been announced, and it's a two conference, so it's going to be interesting. First day is speeches and more of a rally. The second day is how we're going to get branches and local grassroots movements
Okay.
nationally across the UK. So
Okay.
yeah,
Well, will
unfortunately,
Starks still be in power by September?
slippery Starmer. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's not looking good for him. It's not looking good. And he's off on holiday, I hear. Riots in 35, well, protests that may have turned into riots in 35 cities in the country, but Starmer's going on holiday.
Well, I mean, look, it's the summer recess. Our MPs have done a staggering amount of work in the last 4 weeks since they got back from the general election. I mean, multiple laws have been enacted which benefit everyone in society. I mean, they need a bit of
No,
time
no,
off.
they don't. They don't. They don't benefit anyone in society.
Really? Oh, I
Yeah.
must be listening to the wrong news channel. Oh, that's me watching the BBC again. Damn
Yeah.
it.
Anyway, we've strayed on many topics this week. We haven't kept to it at one, but hopefully people will find it interesting. What are you looking forward to this week? What's your week look like?
So basically finish off this rental property so it's ready to go on the market. And then I think the other thing is just working through some of the research behind what the issues facing the travel industry at the moment and how I can help them, and putting together a kind of package program. Particularly excited about doing that because I love all the creative stuff. Yeah, should be interesting. What about you?
Okay. Well, I'm very happy to have a chat with you if you want. If you want, and also I'll hook you up with Adrian because he can talk to you about his Mexican timeshare. Except it's not a timeshare. I think he's buying it outright. What am I
Awesome.
doing? Well, I'm coming back down to earth. I go through these binges of learning new things and putting them into action, which feels very compelling that I do that straight away before it slips away. So unless I come up against something really exciting in the AI front this week, I've basically on Mondays I get my social media content ready for the next couple of weeks, get it all ready to go, get it all scheduled up, and that takes me sort of Monday morning now, whereas it used to take a week. So I'm much happier now. Yeah, I've got to get that proposal out to that friend of yours who is very keen to go ahead, which is nice. And your testimonial helped enormously with that as well. So that was wonderful. Thank you very much. Going on the front page of my website today.
Awesome. Awesome.
Again, you did a really good job. I don't know how you can just talk to camera like that. It's just incredible skill. It really is. So for your own consultancy, you're going to be able to create content that will attract the right kind of clients. Once you've identified who your ideal client is, we'll be able to use AI to work out what their challenges are and how that makes them feel. And then you can create content because you're going to be able to connect with your clients so easily by talking to camera. LinkedIn love native video. They really do. So I have to put a marketing campaign together as soon as you're ready, which will be great. That's pretty much it. I just go through the motions every day. I've got several mentoring students that I'm on call for via WhatsApp. And so it's marketing my own business, delivering my own business, and trying to avoid any exciting new projects that will burn me out like this last week did.
Yeah, I know the feeling. We've got quite a number of land deals that we're just processing through at the moment and getting them secured over in the US. Sorry?
You work in the US with your land stuff, don't you?
Yeah, so we got quite a number of deals that are basically some are listed, some are about to be signed off, and so on and so forth, which is great. But then out of the blue, I don't know why, the mentor we work with over there just sent us some coaching leads for people to coach. So I was talking to my business partner last week about XYZ and said, well, look, we need to come up with something. So I've come up with something that's quite nifty in terms of setting up their systems and then setting up their sales strategy, because my business partner is kind of the sales guy and more the systems and marketing guy. So that should be quite interesting, but that was unexpected.
One of the goals of an entrepreneur at a certain level is to keep your desk as free as possible. I never remember I read Who Moved My Cheese. Do you remember that book, that management book? Or it was about dealing with change.
I do remember that book, but then I also remember that Einstein, when he died, had a desk littered with crap, and he was a genius. So I look at my desk littered with crap and think, yes,
I don't mean literally your desk. I mean, I actually, my desk is actually pristine. It gets a little bit messy sometimes with the odd wire, but no, I'm not talking about a physical desk. I'm talking about your mental desk. When you get to a certain level, and even when you're getting to a certain level, it's important to put systems and processes in place so that your brain has free space. So if something exciting comes in, or a new deal comes in, or a new thing you want to learn really quickly comes in, like last week, I was able to learn these 2 new AI skills because I had, I've got everything running seamlessly the rest of the time. And I think that's important, is to, it was the bloke who wrote Who Moved My Cheese that said something in one of his books. It might have been a book about management. And he said, your goal as a person who gets beyond a certain level is to have an empty desk mentally and physically, so that you can take advantage of opportunities and you can jump on things quickly, and you don't have to metaphorically clear your desk mentally to be able to handle new things.
I agree. Okay. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's gone pretty well, and your internet connection held up brilliantly. So there was only a few bits where you were a bit shuddery, but we could hear you clearly all the time. So that was the main thing.
Fabulous.
Good. All right. Well, I'll see you same time, same place next week, roughly.
Yeah, that's another wrap.
Speak soon.